Hello, and welcome to Midnight Affairs Tales. Your support means everything to us. We'd love to know, which geographical location are you joining from today? At home on the go, share with us below now. Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Clay Weller had not even closed the car door when the screen door slammed behind him. His boots still dusted with the sand of cobble, his heart still caught somewhere between survival and silence. He looked up to see his wife, Lila, standing on the porch with arms crossed and zero hesitation in her voice. "You are not coming in here," she said. "What?" Clay blinked, shifting the duffel bag on his shoulder. "I said no," she snapped. "You are not walking back into my house like some stray dog." She glanced around quickly, making sure the neighbors were watching. "You think I want you limping through the living room like some broken soldier?" That word, broken, hit harder than anything he had faced overseas. Clay did not respond. His jaw tightened, his hands locked around the straps of his bag, and he stepped back without saying a word. Lila turned, disappeared into the house, and closed the door. The lock clicked. The sun burned into the Arizona pavement. Clay stood there for a long time, feeling the world rearrange itself around him. That night, he slept in his truck, parked right outside the house he had paid for. He stared up through the windshield, watching the flicker of light in the upstairs window. Lila was pacing. She was not alone. What changed? He asked himself again and again. She used to wait for his calls from base. Letters. Videos. Now she shut him out like trash on the curb. The next morning, he saw them. A man, tall, fit, younger than Clay. He walked out of the front door with Lila behind him, laughing. Her hand touched the man's arm. A kiss. Quick. Casual. Clay did not move. He just sat in the driver's seat, breathing, watching. What the hell is going on in my house? Wait. I need to tell you something important. Have you ever realized that you keep watching my videos but haven't subscribed yet? This video has reached this point, which means you're enjoying it. So why not subscribe? I have a big goal, 10,000 subscribers, and you can help me reach it. Think about it. If you don't subscribe now, you might miss my next big video. This is the moment. Hit that subscribe button now. Do it now. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss out. I know you'll do it. And when we hit 10,000 subscribers, I have a special surprise for you. Now, let's continue story. By the third night, the truck smelled like old sweat and desert sand. Clay sat in the driver's seat, running over every second of that first day home. Not one phone call. Not one welcome back. Just that insult burned into his brain. Broken soldier. He had heard worse. On the field, in tents, in enemy zones, he had been called things that would tear a man apart. But this was different. This came from home. His phone buzzed. A notification. Instagram. Lila had posted a new photo. Love, success, and sunshine #couple goals. The image showed her and that same man, dressed up, posing in front of the house Clay still technically owned. Couple goals. Clay clenched the phone so tightly his knuckles whitened. By morning, he had a plan. He cleaned up, used the YMCA for a shower, and walked into a small community bank branch. "Hi," he said calmly. "I would like to check on the status of my VA settlement account." The clerk tapped keys. Her face shifted. "Mr. Weller, it says here, that account was closed 3 weeks ago. The balance was transferred to an account under Weller Enterprises, LLC. Clay leaned in slowly. "Excuse me? I do not own a business." "According to this, you do." It hit him then. Lila had access. She had forged papers. He knew her tricks. She had done paperwork for both of them for years. He stepped outside the bank, stomach hollow. A call to the VA office confirmed it. The entire settlement had been redirected. He was officially broke. Not just cheated on. Not just discarded. Financially gutted. Standing under the Arizona sun again, Clay laughed once. Just once. "What the hell are you really up to, Lila?" He drove 2 hours west before stopping. Not because he was tired, because he needed distance. Distance to breathe. To not break. At a cheap motel, Clay sat at the desk with a pen and notebook. He wrote 3 names. Lila, unknown man, Weller Enterprises, LLC. He circled the third one hard. The next day, he walked into a veterans resource center. Not for therapy, not for help, but because something told him that was where this trail started. The man behind the desk, mid-40s, gray crew cut, nodded. Clay Weller, we know your name. Your file came through a month ago. For housing aid paperwork. I did not apply, Clay said. The man raised an eyebrow. That's strange. The form had your signature. Clay paused. Can I see it? What he saw made his skin crawl. Fake, but close. The signature was a photocopy from an old form he had signed years ago. Pasted. Reused. She is using me, Clay said quietly. She is using my name for housing credits and military funds. The staffer frowned. That is a felony. I know, Clay said, and I am going to prove it. He left the building with a new goal. He was no longer just trying to understand why she cheated. This was bigger than that. She had stolen from him, lied, sold his identity, and she was making money off his war wounds. No, this was not about heartbreak anymore. This was about justice. And for the first time since he had come home, Clay Weller smiled. How many people are helping her pull this off, and how many more are going to fall with her? 3 nights later, Clay came back. Not to forgive, not to fight, just to see. He parked across the street from the house that still had his name on the deed. A different car sat in the driveway, sleek, expensive, custom license plate that read B.S. Darnarchi. Clay smirked. Best energy, he muttered. Real subtle. It was just after 11 p.m. Porch lights dimmed. One room upstairs still glowing. Clay reached into his glove box and pulled out a small pair of binoculars, military issue, beat up, but still sharp. Through the second-story window, he saw them. Lila, in a robe, and the man, shirtless, laughing, confident. She leaned in, kissed his chest, then vanished from view. A moment later, the light went out. Clay dropped the binoculars in the passenger seat and leaned back. This was not just infidelity. It was bold, mocking. She knew he was watching. She wanted him to. That was the moment the pain finally turned into something else. Not rage, not grief, clarity. He took out his phone, opened the camera, and zoomed in on the driveway. Snap. License plate. The next day, he ran it through a contact at the DMV, an old buddy who owed him. No questions asked. The car was registered to a Brent Dorman. Trainer. Influencer. Formerly convicted for wire fraud 6 years ago under the name Brian Dorman. New identity, same scams. That night, Clay opened a new folder on his laptop. Named it simply, war_docs. Inside it, he added 3 files. Brent, alias check Lila, forged signature Weller LLC, shell documents he had spent years in combat zones learning how to survive. Now, he would use every one of those skills to dismantle this new enemy quietly, methodically. Because Brent was not the problem. Lila was. 2 weeks passed. Clay lived off instant noodles and motel coffee. His time went into research, long hours cross-referencing company documents, tracing digital footprints, and quietly calling in favors from contacts who thought he was dead or deployed. What he found was worse than he imagined. Lila had created 5 different LLCs, all linked to fake construction and real estate rehab businesses. The names were patriotic, meant to trigger trust. Iron Valor Properties, Rebuild Nation Homes, Flag and Stone Construction. Every one of them was connected to his VA credentials. Clay was the ghost owner. She had used his military injuries, medals, and discharge papers to apply for federal veteran business grants, the kind meant to help wounded soldiers rebuild after service. Over $2 million had flowed through those accounts in under 9 months. And it did not stop there. He found a photo of Lila and Brent shaking hands with a city councilman, Marcus Hale. Clay recognized him. He had once visited Clay in the hospital after his injury. Now he was smiling next to the woman who stole Clay's identity. Clay clicked print. Dozens of pages. Contracts. Grant approvals. Screenshots. He organized everything into binders. Labeled them like a mission dossier. Then he called an old name, Shade Denton, former intern at Weller Enterprises. She had vanished from Lila's feed around the time the company pivoted last year. When Shay answered, her voice was shaky. Clay? Is it really you? Yes, he said, and I think you know why I'm calling. There was silence on the other end. Then she said it. I want in. Shay met Clay in the parking lot of a truck stop diner 2 towns over. Baseball cap, no makeup, hoodie pulled tight. She looked around like she was being watched. Clay sat across from her, quiet, controlled. I worked there for 8 months, she said. At first, it was real. Small rehabs. Real homes. Then, she changed. She got greedy. The deals got fake. The numbers stopped making sense. I asked questions. Next week I was fired. No paperwork. Just gone. She pulled out a flash drive. I copied everything I could. Emails. Contracts. Voice notes. Clay slid it into his laptop and opened the folders. It was gold. Lila had recorded voice memos on her phone, like confessions. One played on the screen. Use Clay's discharge ID for the next round. Just change the signature and upload it through the usual portal. Brent will handle the contractor forms. Clay's jaw tightened. He clicked pause. She said you were crazy, Shay added. Said you were unstable. Dangerous. PTSD mess. People believed her. He closed the laptop. They always do. Until the truth hits. Outside, rain started to fall. It tapped against the windshield in slow, rhythmic bursts. You could walk away from this, he said. No risk. No trouble. Shay shook her head. I want to see her fall. For real. Publicly. He nodded once. Then we start now. Clay added the flash drive data to war_docs. The file list grew longer. Tighter. Complete. Lila had stolen his identity. His money. Clay and Shay sat side by side in the dim glow of a laptop screen inside a rundown roadside motel. A storm growled low across the desert horizon, but inside, their silence was sharp, like steel being drawn. Look at this, Shay whispered, scrolling through a thread of emails tagged Fast Track VA subsidiary transfers. The wording was clinical. Cold. Illegal. Each PDF attached bore Clay's name. His discharge ID. His forged signature. These were submitted last month, Shay said. Under your military record. They used a defunct property out in Chandler, burned down last year. Clay clicked on one of the files. Blueprints. Building permits. A signed contract from Captain Clay Weller, founder of Patriot Hearth Homes. He shook his head. I have never seen that house in my life. Exactly, she replied. But the city issued a grant for it. $280,000. Disbursed in 1 week. Clay leaned back, his jaw locked tight. The motel AC rattled in the corner. Outside, thunder cracked. She is laundering the funds, he said. And someone inside city housing is helping her do it. Shay nodded. Marcus Hale. He signs off on the fast-track files. He only does that for Lila's companies. No inspections. No appraisals. Just rubber stamps. Clay opened a fresh notebook and wrote the name, Marcus Hale. He underlined it twice. I served with this man, Clay said slowly. He held my hand in the damn hospital and told me I was a hero. Shay looked at him. He sold you out, Clay. Lightning lit the sky behind them. For a moment, Clay stared at the reflection in the dark window. 2 figures sitting in silence, surrounded by data, betrayal, and the start of a plan that would bury every single name on that screen. They all think this will stay buried, he muttered. It will not, Shay answered. Phoenix Convention Center buzzed with camera crews, influencers, and real estate moguls. Red carpet rolled out. Bright banners stretched across the atrium. Women rebuilding America. Empowerment in real estate. At the center of it all was Lila. Perfect teeth. Tan skin. Designer gown that hugged every calculated curve. She moved through the room like a queen, shaking hands, snapping selfies, giving press quotes about authenticity and grit. Behind her, Brent wore a custom-fit suit and fake humility. His smile was polished, but his eyes constantly searched the crowd, like a man used to watching for exits. In the green room, Lila adjusted her earrings in front of the mirror. How do I look? She asked without looking at Brent. Like a woman who just stole America's heart, he replied. She smirked. Good. Because tonight, we own the spotlight. She had no idea that just 2 blocks away, Clay and Shay sat inside a coffee shop, quietly watching the live stream. The camera panned across Lila's face as she accepted her Entrepreneur of the Year award. To all the women out there, she said into the mic, who have been underestimated, this is your sign to bet on yourself. Clay leaned closer to the screen. I will bet on one thing, he said coldly. You are going to choke on every lie you just fed them. Shay typed quickly beside him, scheduling an anonymous Dropbox upload. In less than 48 hours, every fake invoice, every stolen dollar, every falsified permit would land in the inboxes of the press, the SEC, and federal housing authorities. Clay took a photo of the screen, Lila beaming in front of her award. She thinks this is the top, he said. Shay smiled. Then she is going to fall from a long, long way up. The next morning, Clay sat in his truck, parked half a block from Sculpt Forge Gym, a glass-walled haven of wealthy egos and overpriced memberships. Brent Dorman walked out just before 9, duffel bag slung over one shoulder, AirPods in, sunglasses on, like a man who thought he was untouchable. Clay watched as Brent greeted a client with a fist bump and that same smug grin. But now Clay knew what was behind it. Not just arrogance. Strategy. Lies. A past buried under another name. He waited until Brent was gone, then walked inside. Reception smiled. Hi there. Looking to join. Clay handed over a manila envelope. Just dropping off paperwork. For Brent. He left before she could ask another question. Inside the envelope, a copy of Brent's felony record under his old name. Evidence he was currently violating terms of federal parole, photos of Brent signing checks under both names, and a note. Check your employee's real ID. He is not who he says he is. That night, Shay forwarded a report to Clay's email. Brent's records had been unsealed. A new article had gone live. Trainer to the stars exposed as convicted fraudster. Legal fallout expected. Clay stared at the screen. Phase 1, complete. He pulled up the next name in his binder. Delora Wexley, Lila's business mentor. An investor with silent partnerships in 3 of Lila's shell companies. She is next, Clay said aloud. Then Marcus. Then Lila. He did not want yelling. Or confrontation. He wanted the floor to collapse beneath their feet, one lie at a time. Because he was not the pawn in their game anymore. He was the one flipping the entire board. 3 days passed, and not a word from Brent. Not a social media post. No gym promos. No live-streamed workouts with motivational quotes. Just silence. Clay knew what that kind of silence meant. Panic. He had sent a message without ever raising his voice. A strategy he had learned overseas. Never meet force with noise. Just precision. Target. Impact. Retreat. He sat across from Shay in the back booth of a 24-hour diner, files open between them. She clicked through security footage of one of the rehab properties on Lila's business list. The footage was clear. No one had touched the building in over 8 months. Yet somehow the paperwork showed it had been renovated and sold twice. I checked the deed transfers, Shay said, and both buyers are listed under LLCs that trace back to Delora Wexley. Lila's mentor, Clay muttered. More like the architect behind the entire scam. Clay's fingers tapped slowly on the tabletop. We need to flip one of them. Brent is too exposed to help her now. She will burn him to save herself. Shay nodded. Delora is too protected. But I might know someone who can get us inside. Clay looked up. Her personal assistant, Shay said. Name's Ava. She used to DM me after I got fired. Said she hated working for Delora, but needed the money. Get her talking, Clay said. Anything we can tie back to housing fraud, VA exploitation, or campaign bribes, we document and hit them all together. One trigger. Total collapse. They packed up quickly, leaving cash on the table. Outside, the sky was thick with clouds, but held no rain. Just tension. Clay's phone buzzed once. A text from a burner number he had set up through an encrypted app. It was Brent. I know what you were doing. You were playing with fire. Clay stared at the screen. Then he typed back. Then let us both burn. Ava Torres was young, sharp, and cautious. She met Shay and Clay in the corner of a quiet co-working space downtown. No small talk. No hesitation. She opened her laptop and pushed it toward Clay. "These are internal memos," she said. "Delora had me clean them off the company's servers last month, but I backed up everything. I knew it would come back on me someday." The documents were loaded with proof. Signed approvals for grant applications with falsified property assessments. Invoices billed for repairs that never happened. A list of homes tagged as rehabbed, some of which were still burned-out shells on Google Maps. "She calls it phantom flipping," Ava said quietly. "No real work. Just paperwork passed through the right hands. Inspectors, city grants, fake buyers. Everyone gets their cut." Clay flipped to the last file. A scanned check from one of Lila's companies, addressed to Marcus Hale. $10,000, he read. "For consulting." Ava leaned in. "He meets her once a month. Private dinners. She calls it mentoring. Everyone knows what it is." Clay scanned the digital files to a secure drive. Each piece fit perfectly. Lila was not a solo fraudster. She was the face of a machine. "Why are you helping us?" he asked. Ava hesitated. "Because I watched her smile in your face at the hospital fundraiser last year, knowing she was stealing everything you bled for. I could not be part of that anymore." Clay stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "You just helped end it." That night, Clay drove to a new location. An abandoned property Lila claimed was completely restored and currently under contract. Inside, it was rotted, filled with dust and broken cabinets. He filmed everything. As he turned, a noise came from upstairs, quick, sharp, like a footstep. He paused. No flashlight, no weapon, just silence again. But this time, the silence was not dead. It was watching. Shay backed up the new footage, edited with timestamps and location data. She dropped it into a secure folder titled Exposure Day. Every click of the keyboard brought them closer. Clay sat beside her, scanning one of Delora's server logs Ava had retrieved. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a flagged entry. 3 large transfers within 1 week, same amount, $250,000 each, routed through ghost accounts in Panama, then funneled back into her consulting firm in LA. Shay blinked. "Money laundering. That is federal time." He nodded. "And this? It is enough to bring in the feds. Not just Housing Authority or the SEC. We are talking real indictments." They paused when her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Text only. They know you are helping him. You need to disappear." Shay stared at it. "That is not Brent. That is someone else." Clay leaned over, eyes narrowing. "Take a screenshot. Do not reply." Later that night, they drove in silence, the weight of what they were building beginning to settle in. "You are not scared?" she asked finally. "I was scared when I thought this was just about me," he said. "Now I know this is bigger. They are using vets as props, as tools. That makes it war." She nodded, the road lights casting long shadows across the dash. Clay pulled over near the edge of a canyon lookout. He stepped out, looked across the black horizon, and exhaled. "We are not just taking Lila down," he said. "We are collapsing everything she is built on, one file at a time." Shay leaned against the truck beside him. "And when it all crashes?" Clay's voice was low, steady. "They will all know exactly who lit the fuse." Ava had given them everything, but one file stood out. A Zoom recording, labeled Funding Discussion, May 14th. Clay played it back in Shay's small apartment with the blinds drawn tight. The screen lit up with 4 faces: Lila, Brent, Delora, and Marcus Hale. "All right." Lila's voice came through, clear and smug. "Next round, we push the Valor build-outs." Clay's name still triggers approval fast. "Are the VA credentials still clean?" Delora asked. "I made new scans," Brent replied. Shay was the only one who ever questioned them. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "As long as it is Clay's ID, I can slide it through city processing with no issue." Then Lila said it. "He has no idea. Poor guy still thinks I cried at his deployment ceremony because I loved him." Clay hit pause. The silence in the room was unbearable. Shay's hands trembled. They laughed at everything. Your injury, your service, your silence. Clay stood slowly, jaw tight, eyes hard. We are not sending this to just one outlet anymore. He opened a new folder. Full distribution, Phase 2, Shay nodded. What is Phase 2? He turned to her, calm but locked in. Exposure. All of it. Simultaneously. Public. Legal. Permanent. They would send the full recording to 3 newsrooms, 2 watchdog agencies, and a military foundation that specialized in protecting wounded veterans from financial abuse. Clay stared at the screen. I am done letting people talk for me. Now they will listen. Phoenix City Hall stood tall under a bright sky, its marble steps polished, its hallways full of hushed politics. Inside, Marcus Hale sat in his office, unaware his career was about to be shredded. A thin envelope arrived by courier. No return address. Marked, private, eyes only. Inside, printed emails from Lila to Marcus, discussing agreed bonuses, a forged city inspection report for a home that no longer existed, a copy of the recorded Zoom call, time-stamped and transcribed. The room went still. Marcus read every page. His lips moved, but no words came out. By noon, he was gone. His office vacated. Staff told reporters he had taken emergency medical leave. Clay watched the coverage on the motel television with a quiet stare. He ran. Shay nodded. They always do. They turned back to the war board on the wall, an organized chaos of sticky notes, photos, red string, case files. Delora is next, Clay said. She is too big to vanish. She will try to spin it. He picked up a USB stick. But when the auditors open her accounts tomorrow morning, they will find 7 years of clean money tainted by one detail. Shay looked at him. Which is? Clay smiled without humor. Me. Delora had built a legacy on helping veteran entrepreneurs. And Clay's name was on her press kits, grants, tax write-offs. All lies. Shay queued up scheduled document leaks. One to the IRS, one to the Wall Street Journal, one directly to a veteran oversight board. By the time Delora got out of bed the next day, the empire would already be cracked open. And when she reached for her phone, she would see it. Clay's face on a news story. Wounded vet speaks out. The real man behind a real estate scam. Delora Wexley's mansion sat on a cliffside overlooking the desert. White stone, glass walls, and arrogance built into every square foot. She paced across her office, 3 phones buzzing, legal teams screaming in her ear. This is defamation, she snapped into the speaker. Give me the board. I want a statement denying all military affiliation. Her assistant entered, pale. Delora, you are trending. Not in the good way. The TV behind her flicked to a live interview. Clay Weller, sitting in a modest studio, face calm, voice steady. I never gave them permission. I never signed anything. They used my service record, my trauma, my injuries, to make millions. Delora turned the TV off with a sharp motion. This man is irrelevant. A broken piece of PR junk. She turned to her desk. An envelope waited for her. She opened it. Inside, a single photograph. Lila, Brent, Marcus, Delora, all seated at that now infamous Zoom meeting. On the back, written in pen, you built your empire on my scars. Now I will bury it under the truth. C.W. Delora froze. The phone fell from her hand. Shay hit send on the final press packet. By nightfall, Delora's investors pulled out. Her company's accounts were frozen. The DOJ opened a preliminary case. Clay stood on a rooftop across town, watching the skyline. She fell harder than I expected, Shay said. Clay kept his eyes forward. Lila is next. One queen left on the board, and he was about to flip it over in front of the entire country. Citywide pressure hit like a flood. Marcus Hale's sudden disappearance sparked whispers that turned into headlines. The mayor's office denied knowledge. Council members dodged questions. But behind closed doors, panic spread, because Marcus had approved over 24 properties using Clay's stolen credentials. And some of those homes? They did not even exist. Shay sat in front of 3 monitors, screen after screen showing property records, inspection reports, and drone footage. She pointed to a site listed as fully rehabilitated just 3 weeks ago. The drone showed an empty lot. Not a broken house. Not a foundation. Just nothing. No permits. No build. No cleanup, she said. They billed the city $78,000 for this. Clay exhaled slowly, watching the footage. The mayor signed off on fast-track funding. I am willing to bet she got a donation in return. Shay pulled up campaign financials. Look at this. One day after that funding was released, a $50,000 donation came in under a consulting firm tied to Delora. Classic laundering, Clay muttered. The plan was working. The web was unraveling. And now it was big enough to swallow anyone even loosely connected. That night, Clay printed flyers with QR codes linking to all the evidence. He posted them in veteran centers, town halls, and online forums. Within 24 hours, a local news station picked it up. Veterans used as shell owners in Phoenix housing scam. Where's the mayor? The city could no longer pretend. It had begun as a personal betrayal. Now it was a wildfire, and it was burning everything. Inside a luxury spa in Scottsdale, Lila smiled as she soaked in a Himalayan salt bath, scrolling through her social media. Despite Brent's silence and Delora's PR mess, her own pages were thriving. Photos of her charity events and women in business panels were racking up likes. Her followers had no clue. As far as they knew, she was the queen of comeback energy. She closed her eyes. But peace never lasts long when it is built on lies. Her phone vibrated again. 47 missed calls. 13 voicemails. A headline popped up. Phoenix businesswoman under investigation for military impersonation scheme. Lila sat up, water spilling onto the marble floor. She tapped the link. Her own face stared back at her, screen grabbed from the award gala, smiling in front of a banner that now read like a punchline. Women Rebuilding America. Her inbox exploded. Emails from lawyers. Calls from TV producers canceling deals. A message from her accountant. All your corporate accounts are flagged. Federal hold. IRS inbound. Then a final text came in. No number. Just a file. She opened it. The Zoom call. The full conversation. She heard herself laugh about Clay's injuries. She heard Brent talk about changing files. About burying Clay under paperwork. She screamed. Threw the phone across the spa. The screen cracked. The truth stayed. In that moment, Lila finally realized something terrifying. This was not damage control. This was warfare. And the man she called broken had just launched the final phase. Late that night, Clay met someone he never thought he would see again. Jordan Ricks, a former infantry brother, now a bouncer in a Flagstaff bar. He had called Clay that morning, the voice quiet, regretful. I need to see you. I got something to say. They sat at the back of the bar, beer bottles sweating on the table between them. I knew about Brent, Jordan said finally. Not everything. I saw him. 6 months ago. At your house. I figured Lila would come clean eventually. Clay's eyes never moved. Why did you not tell me? I was tired, man. Tired of being in the middle of people's messes. She gave me $5,000 to keep quiet. I took it. Paid my mom's surgery bill. Then I drank the rest. He looked down, ashamed. I kept telling myself it was not my fight. But now everyone knows. And you are the one doing something about it. Clay leaned back, the chair creaking. I appreciate you telling me. But I do not forgive you. Jordan nodded. I figured. You are lucky, Clay added. You got to walk away from it. Some of them will not. He stood up to leave, then paused. There are going to be arrests, Jordan. If I were you, I would tell the truth before someone drags you into it. As he walked out, Jordan's voice stopped him. I saw something else that day, he said. A manila folder. Brent had it. He handed it to Lila. Thick. Labeled OP-SEC, back pocket. I do not know what it was, but she locked it in a safe. Clay turned, and for the first time since this began, he felt something shift. A loose thread. One final secret. Still buried. Still dangerous. But now, it had a name. The ballroom at the Eden Grand shimmered with gold light. Marble floors, glass chandeliers, and a stage backed by a massive LED wall that read, "Empowerment through Property, Gala Night honoring Lila Weller." It was a spectacle. Politicians, celebrities, real estate giants. Champagne flowed. Cameras flashed. And in the center of it all stood Lila, flawless in emerald silk, champagne flute in hand, mask of confidence perfectly intact. If anyone noticed the tremble in her fingers, they said nothing. This was her stage, her crowd, her illusion. But in the crowd, someone else had entered. Clay, hair trimmed, suit sharp, eyes unreadable. He moved like a ghost, unnoticed, calm, focused. Shay fed updates through an earpiece. Press kits distributed. QR leaks went live 15 minutes ago. Watch for screen interference on stage. The MC stepped up to the mic. Tonight, we honor a woman who redefined female leadership in housing. A powerhouse. A builder. A survivor. Clay's eyes never left the stage. Lila Weller. Applause. Lila stepped forward. Smile wide. But before she could speak, the LED wall glitched. Flickered. Then changed. A still frame appeared. Lila laughing in a Zoom call. Then Brent. Then Marcus. The audio followed. Use Clay's discharge ID again. No one checks. Gasps rippled through the room. Silence followed. Then the whispers started. Lila froze. Cut it. Cut it. The AV team scrambled. Too late. The file was hard-coded. Auto-looping. Controlled off-site. Phones rose across the room. Recording. Streaming. Live. Lila stood in front of her own crime scene. Dressed like royalty. Exposed like a fraud. And Clay? He turned away without a word. Because his voice had already been heard. The gala exploded across news outlets before midnight. Scandal rocks Phoenix. Real estate mogul caught in federal fraud expose. During her own gala, the video spread fast. Faster than they could deny it. Faster than they could spin. Lila's sponsors pulled out. Her name was removed from tomorrow's keynote. Her face was blurred from ads within hours. Brent's gym shuttered the next morning. Dolores investment firms went under federal audit. And Clay? He sat in a booth at a diner just outside town, stirring black coffee. Shay slid a tablet across the table. FBI is involved now. Housing Authority. VA Commission. They are opening coordinated investigations. You started an avalanche. Clay stared at the screen. I did not start it. They did. I just kicked the first rock. Shay exhaled. Lila is quiet. Off the grid. Probably hiding. But this folder, she slid over a fresh drive. Op SEC back pocket. Jordan was right. It is real. Ava found it backed up in a hidden email archive. Clay plugged it in. Clicked open the files. Dozens of audio files. Hidden contracts. Password-protected memos. And a buried email chain. One name kept appearing. Not Brent. Not Delora. Not Marcus. But Clay Weller. Fraud insurance policies. Life insurance riders. Contingency payout triggers. Shay's voice dropped. She was planning a backup plan. If this fell apart, it was going to fall on you. Clay closed the laptop. She did not just steal from me. She built her survival on my name. He stood. Then we make sure there is nothing left for her to survive with. Clay moved like a soldier again. Precise, focused, always watching. In less than 24 hours, the final drop would go live. A full expose published on a national military news site, legal affidavits filed against Lila, and her partner's live interview scheduled with a major veteran-focused talk show. It was no longer just revenge. It was reckoning, and it was coordinated. Shay watched Clay prepare from across the room, printing files, organizing timelines, checking media contacts one last time. You are calm, she said. He zipped the final folder shut. Because this time I finish it. Later that night, Clay stepped out into the motel parking lot. The air was heavy. Rain coming, maybe. He looked up at the sky. No words. Just a breath. Back inside, Shay monitored the final piece. A server that would push all the files public at 7 p.m. sharp. Are you ready? She asked. Clay sat across from her. I have been ready since the moment she told me I was broken. Then the screen flashed green. Upload complete. Scheduled launch. 12 hours. Shay reached for the power switch. Clay stopped her. Leave it on. Let it glow. Because when the countdown ended, the world would know everything. No spin. No filter. Just truth. And Lila Weller, queen of fake homes, fake love, and fake success, would be publicly, permanently unmade. 7 p.m. The moment hit like a precision strike. Every server lit green. The expose published on Valor Watch, the nation's largest independent veterans news platform. Headline: The Woman Who Sold Valor. Lila Weller and the Betrayal of the American Uniform. It was not just one article. It was a full digital assault. Photos, audio files, scanned documents, side-by-side screenshots of Clay's military records misused for profit. Each file linked directly to a different phase of the scam. One button. Thousands of eyes. Clay stood in Shay's apartment, watching the page views climb. 10,000. 40. 78,000 in under an hour. News outlets picked it up instantly. Reddit threads exploded. Military forums raged. Shay turned from her screen. She is going to come out swinging. I am counting on it, Clay said, his voice like stone. He stepped outside to take a call from the veteran talk show producer. We want him live, the producer said. Tomorrow night. Prime time. Full segment. We already pulled the legal clearances. Clay paused. Will she be watching? She might be on the same show. Silence. Then Clay spoke. Calm and final. Book it. He hung up and stared out at the night. The sky had turned violet. Thunder rolled low but never broke. Inside, Shay's laptop pinged with a new alert. Clay, he walked back in. On the screen was a video just posted from Lila herself. Her eyes puffy, voice shaking. It was clearly a rushed upload. I know the accusations sound horrible, but I need you to understand. I love Clay. He was not well. I tried to help him. He refused help. He got angry. Unstable. Clay watched in silence. Then he looked at Shay. There it is. Her final lie. The studio lights were warm. Too warm. But Clay did not flinch. He sat in the leather chair across from the host of After Valor, the most watched veteran-focused broadcast in the country. The host leaned in. Clay, thank you for being here. Clay nodded once. I came to speak the truth. Let us begin with this. Did you ever authorize Lila Weller to use your military credentials? No, Clay said. Not once. Not in marriage. Not in business. Not ever. The host clicked a remote. On the screen behind them, the infamous gala glitch played again, Lila laughing. Brent speaking. Marcus nodding. Clay's face stayed calm. But the pressure in the room was heavy. The audience silent. Then the host said, we invited Lila to respond. She sent a video. It played. The same apology from earlier. Rambling. Emotional. Blaming his trauma. Calling him paranoid. When it ended, the host turned to Clay. You have the final word. Clay looked directly into the camera. Do not use my pain to sell yourself as a victim. I nearly died serving this country. And she turned that into a business model. That is not failure. That is not poor judgment. That is evil. The audience gasped. The host leaned back, letting it sit. Clay continued, his voice steady. I was called broken, unfixable, disposable. But I rebuilt. Quietly, carefully. And now, all of you can see what she really built. A castle made of fraud. The broadcast ended in silence. Then roaring applause. Clay stood up, shook the host's hand, and walked out into the night. He had said what he came to say, and tomorrow, the arrests would begin. 1:12 a.m. Shay burst through the motel room door, laptop in hand, eyes wide. Clay, you need to see this. He looked up, still in his suit from the interview. What is it? She opened the screen. It showed an encrypted email thread, newly decrypted from Dolores' backup drive. Sender, Brent. Subject, backup leverage, in case Clay survives this. Inside were two attachments. One was a forged psychiatric report with Clay's name, created 6 months ago. The second was worse. A draft police report claiming domestic violence. She was preparing to frame you, Shay whispered. If this went sideways, she was going to say you hit her, abused her, use your PTSD as proof. Clay's stomach clenched. He closed his eyes for a second. She was going to flip it. All of it. He stood and walked slowly to the window, staring out at the neon lights of the highway. I knew she lied. I knew she cheated. I knew she stole. He looked back at Shay, voice harder now. But she was ready to destroy my life forever. Shay's voice cracked. We need to send this out. Clay nodded slowly. Not just this. Everything. This is the final push. He picked up the phone. Not to call a lawyer. To call the investigative unit at the DOJ that had quietly asked for a callback last week. It is time, he said into the receiver. I am ready to testify. The footage dropped at 6:45 a.m. sharp. Local morning news anchors interrupted regular broadcasts with a breaking live segment. Personal trainer caught in multi-million-dollar scam. Federal agents execute warrant on Brent Dorman. The screen showed Brent in sweatpants, being handcuffed outside of his luxury condo. He tried to hide his face. Cameras caught every second. One reporter shouted, Brent, did you falsify military documents? Another, were you paid to keep Clay Weller silent? He said nothing, just kept walking with his head down, escorted into the black SUV. Clay watched from the motel, expression unreadable. He is the first, Shay said beside him, sipping cold coffee, eyes fixed on the TV. The front man always falls first. Delora will bury him with silence, Clay said. She will act like he was the whole scheme. But she does not know. We are 2 moves ahead. Shay checked her messages. The DOJ confirmed. You are in for testimony. They will build the criminal case based on what you hand them. Clay nodded. Then let us give them everything. Later that day, Clay posted one single photo to a new account verified by multiple outlets. A photo of Brent in cuffs, beside a caption. This is what happens when you build your empire on someone else's pain. CW The post hit over 2 million shares by sundown. This was not just a scandal anymore. It was national, and the public was no longer watching quietly. They were demanding justice. Lila Weller sat inside a penthouse suite she no longer owned. Her makeup was smeared, hair undone. 2 phones buzzed nonstop, lighting up with texts from lawyers, managers, brand reps, all of them saying the same thing. This cannot be saved. She had tried. The apology video, the manipulated sympathy play, the claims that Clay was violent, mentally unstable, unfit to tell a story without bias. None of it worked. The twist in public opinion came hard and fast when people saw the backup leverage emails, the forged psychiatric report, the draft abuse claims. That was the final nail. She had not just lied. She had weaponized the trauma of a man who bled for the country, and the country saw it now, clearly. An urgent knock came on the door. Her lawyer entered, face pale. Lila, the federal subpoena just hit, and your name is on 6 of the 8 indictments. She blinked. What happens if I run? You will be hunted. Lila walked to the window, looking down at the city lights that once bowed to her every deal, every post, every fake contract. Now, reporters sat outside in vans. Drones hovered in silence. Even her followers, the thousands who once called her inspiring, were flooding her comments with fire. You used a soldier for clout. You disgust me. Justice for Clay. She had silenced him once. Now she could not stop the noise even with all her money. And in that moment, Lila Weller realized something terrifying. She was no longer the story. She was the cautionary tale. At exactly 11:02 a.m., Lila's access to all her corporate and personal bank accounts vanished. Frozen. Flagged. Investigated. The IRS moved faster than anyone expected. Your entire financial footprint is compromised, her new accountant said flatly on the phone. It is not just the LLCs. You shifted VA grant money into your personal investments. There is no clean exit. I was advised to do that, Lila snapped. By who, he asked. She paused. She could not say Delora. Because Delora had gone dark. No calls, no statements, no trace. Every person who once stood beside her had already stepped away. Clay sat in a government office miles away, signing the final affidavits. He looked at the folder labeled United States v. Lyla Weller et al. He placed his pen down. Done. An officer beside him said, "You should know." The financial forensics team uncovered one more detail. Clay raised an eyebrow. She used one of the stolen funds to take out a life insurance policy on you. Forged. You were listed as terminal. Clay sat still. He had expected betrayal. But not this. Not death for profit. Shay, sitting nearby, said nothing. Just reached over and placed a hand on his arm. Clay exhaled. She really wanted me erased. The officer nodded. But she will be. Outside, a small group of veterans gathered near the courthouse steps, holding up signs. Justice for Weller. We are not your ticket. Fraud is not female empowerment. Clay walked out. He did not wave. He just looked ahead, steady, quiet, and finally free of silence. It happened without warning, exactly as Clay planned. At 9:07 a.m., a surprise press conference unfolded on the courthouse steps. A federal prosecutor, flanked by DOJ agents, read from a short statement. Today we are issuing formal charges against Delora Wexley for wire fraud, laundering, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to exploit federal veteran programs. Cameras flashed. At the exact same moment, agents raided Delora's LA office. Inside the glass tower, her executive staff stood stunned as federal teams marched through hallways, loading boxes, seizing hard drives, freezing every asset she had once used to project power. Delora herself was already in custody, picked up quietly at her weekend estate, where she had been unreachable for days. But now, there was nowhere left to hide. Back in Phoenix, Clay watched the live broadcast from his truck, parked near the courthouse. Shay climbed in beside him, holding 2 coffees. They have her on record admitting to the laundering. Clay nodded. What about the property flipping accounts? All seized. Her entire network has collapsed. Clay stared ahead for a long moment. She built her empire pretending to help people like me. Shay leaned back. You just helped take it all down. That evening, Clay was invited to speak at a veterans summit hosted by the state governor's office. He did not want a stage, but this one mattered. The ballroom was filled with service members, press, advocates. Banners hung with bold letters. Honoring truth, protecting valor. Clay stepped to the mic, notes untouched in his hand. He looked out at the room. I am not a public speaker, he began, but I know what it feels like to be used. The room hushed. When I came home, I did not need a parade. I needed peace. Instead, someone I trusted used my name, my trauma, and my uniform to build a lie. And when I stayed quiet, she called me broken. He paused, took a breath. I am here to say I am not broken. I am rebuilt. Applause rose, not out of habit, but truth. Clay continued. I did not just fight back for myself. I fought for every one of us who was told to be quiet, who had paperwork filled out behind their backs, whose value was measured in funding, not sacrifice. He stepped down to a standing ovation. Outside, a young Marine walked up to him. You gave us our voice back, sir. Clay shook his hand. No, he said. We just remembered we always had it. Lyla Weller's trial date was set. Bail denied. Assets frozen. Lawyers quit. The prosecution team stacked with evidence that could bury her for decades. In the weeks leading up to court, she stayed inside a facility. No internet. No contact. The same woman who once lived online now existed in a world without followers. One morning, she received a letter. No stamp. No return address. She opened it, hands trembling. It was not a threat. It was not forgiveness. Just one line, written in plain, perfect handwriting. You taught me silence. I taught you exposure. CW. She folded the letter, stared at it for hours. Not in rage. In resignation. Because she finally understood something terrifying. Clay never yelled. He just waited. And then he ended her without raising his voice once. The final court papers were delivered to Clay on a quiet Tuesday morning. Inside a manila envelope, Signed divorce agreement, legal confirmation of damages, property settlements forfeited to Clay, official renouncement of all rights to Weller Enterprises and associated accounts. It was over. Not just emotionally, legally, financially, publicly. Clay stood at the post office drop box, holding the papers before sliding them in for official filing. Shay stepped up beside him. "You do not seem relieved." "I am," he said. "But this was never about the divorce." She nodded. "Then what was it about?" Clay turned to her. "It was about truth." They walked back to the truck, the sky above them shifting from storm gray to blue. "Do you think people like her ever really feel guilt?" Shay asked. "No," Clay said. "But they feel loss." He looked at the courthouse behind them. "And she lost everything." Lila's media footprint began vanishing piece by piece. First, her sponsored content disappeared from brand pages. Then, her entrepreneur panels were wiped from YouTube. Finally, her own Instagram, once filled with curated glamour and manufactured authenticity, went dark. Her name no longer trended. It was avoided. A woman who once paid thousands to boost her online presence now had PR firms quietly de-indexing her name from search engines. Clay sat in a coffee shop downtown, watching a young barista scroll through her feed. She looked confused. "Was not this the real estate lady?" she asked a friend. "The one who won all those awards?" "Yeah," the friend replied. "Turns out she was scamming wounded vets or something. Totally fake." Just like that, Lila became what she feared most: irrelevant. Shay sat across from Clay, laptop open, organizing files for archiving. "We are done chasing," she said. "The rest is cleanup. They will take care of her now." Clay nodded slowly. "No more fights. No more press. Just quiet." "Exactly," she said. "Exactly what you wanted." He looked out the window at the street. Same pavement he had once slept on, truck windows fogged, stomach empty, dignity in pieces. Now he was calm, not victorious, just whole again. 3 months later, the landscape was completely different in every way. Clay had relocated to rural Montana. Open skies, cold mornings, a quiet 2-bedroom cabin surrounded by pine trees and silence. No cameras, no reporters, no reminders, just a foundation, a literal one. He poured concrete by hand, hammer and grip, working sunrise to sunset on a new structure. Shay arrived just after noon, her car crunching gravel. "You really bought land and started building from scratch," she said, stepping out. "I needed something real," he replied. She looked around. "It smells like freedom here." He handed her a set of blueprints. "This will be the first. A small home for a vet and their family. Free of cost. All from the restitution settlement." She stared at the papers, a soft grin on her face. "You are not done fighting, are you?" "No," Clay said. "I'm just done fighting for myself." They stood in silence for a moment. Mountains in the distance. Wind running through tall grass. "You are not going back to the city?" she asked. He shook his head. "There is nothing left for me there. But here, I can rebuild more than just wood and stone." She stepped closer. "Let me help." Clay looked at her, and for once smiled. "Then grab a hammer." By late spring, the frame was up, roof sealed, windows in, insulation ready. Clay worked the electrical line while Shay installed cabinets she had driven across state lines to donate. This was not just a house anymore. It was a statement. The nonprofit was registered under a new name, Second Honor Project, focused on housing for disabled vets, especially those manipulated or defrauded by broken systems. Clay submitted the first intake application to a committee of veteran support specialists. "I want it to be real," he told them. "No fake optics. No hashtags. Just help." The first recipient was already chosen, a young mother, Corporal Elena Cruz, who lost her husband to suicide after medical benefits were denied. She and her daughter had been living in a car for 3 weeks. When they pulled up to the cabin, Elena stepped out, stunned. "This is for us." Clay nodded. "It is yours now. We built it for you." Tears filled her eyes. Her daughter clung to her arm. "You do not even know us," Elena whispered. "I know what it feels like to be forgotten," Clay replied. This is not charity. This is justice. She walked inside, holding her child's hand, and broke down at the sight of a real bed, a real stove, a clean room. Outside, Clay stood in the yard, eyes on the horizon. One house finished, many more to come. A thick envelope arrived by certified mail. No return address. Clay opened it slowly, at the table near the fireplace. Inside was a letter, handwritten, from prison. Brent Dorman, the same man who helped destroy Clay's marriage, career, and trust, had written 10 pages of confession. I was never meant to go that deep, Brent wrote. Lila made it easy to believe I was just a tool, not a liar. But I lied. I hurt people. I helped her bury you because I was afraid of what truth would cost me. She wanted to erase you. I wanted to pretend you were never real. But you won, and I deserved to lose. Tell your people I was never a soldier, but I now understand what it means to serve a cause bigger than yourself. Even if too late. Clay folded the letter carefully. He did not forgive Brent, but he understood him now. He tucked the pages away into a small drawer under the staircase, beside the very first hammer he used to break ground. Let him carry his own weight, Clay said quietly. Then he walked outside, where Shay was already chalking the layout for the second home. Another family approved? She asked. He nodded. Let us get to work. It started as a podcast guest invite. Shay had agreed to appear on a veteran advocacy show to speak about her part in exposing the Weller fraud network. She kept her voice steady, her words sharp, but when they asked why she had risked everything, her tone changed. Because I watch people pretend, she said. I watched silence become the most dangerous weapon in that entire scam. They called it smart. I call it cowardice. The clip went viral. Within days, Shay was invited to speak at a national anti-fraud summit in Washington, D.C. She stood before senators, journalists, and whistleblowers. A simple black blazer, no makeup, hair tied back, the exact opposite of the women who had once run fake panels about real estate empowerment. I was told to be quiet, Shay said into the mic. I was told exposing the truth would make me unhireable. I was told Clay Weller was unstable, dangerous, irrelevant. None of that was true. What was true is that I knew what they were doing, and I chose to help burn it to the ground. The room was silent. Then the applause came, not thunderous, but grateful. She stepped down with tears in her eyes. Not for herself. For every intern, every assistant, every small voice that never got to speak. Afterward, she texted Clay a single line. We were the storm they never saw coming. Clay received an invitation he never expected. A congressional hearing. Not as a defendant, not as a subject, as a witness. They wanted his testimony to support a new bill, the Veteran Exploitation Prevention Act, designed to penalize the misuse of veteran credentials in financial fraud and property development schemes. He wore a dark blue suit, not a military uniform, not armor, just a man, walking into a place where his voice was finally welcome. Inside, lawmakers listened closely as he described what it felt like to wake up one day and find his name attached to businesses he never built, money he never saw, lies he never told. They used my trauma, Clay said quietly, turned it into currency. He paused. Let the weight sit. I do not want revenge anymore. I want protection for every soldier who gave pieces of themselves and came home thinking they were safe. The committee chair nodded. You have made your point, Mr. Weller. Loud and clear. The bill would take months to pass, maybe longer, but Clay's voice was now part of law, not just headlines. And that mattered. As he left the chamber, reporters swarmed. He said nothing. He had already spoken where it counted. A year later, a documentary aired nationwide. Stolen Valor, the Clay Weller case. Clay did not attend the premiere. He watched from the cabin, fire crackling beside him, Shay curled in the opposite chair, laptop on her knees. The film opened with drone shots of rehab homes, real ones this time. Clay's voice narrated over the visuals. They called me broken, but broken things can be rebuilt, stronger, smarter, sharper. The story was told clean. No sensational edits. No overdramatized cuts. Just facts. Names. Footage. The audience learned how Shay risked everything. How Clay's injury was used for profit. How Brent, Delora, Lila, and Marcus fell. And how one man used hammers, files, and silence to tear it all down. When the credits rolled, a final message appeared on screen. The Second Honor Project has now completed homes for over 40 veteran families. Applications remain open. Shay looked at Clay, eyes glassy. You good? He nodded. I am not used to seeing my story from the outside. You did not just survive it, Clay. She paused. You rewrote the ending. It came late, almost 2 years after the trial. Clay received a voicemail from a blocked number. It was short, just breathing at first. Then her voice. Lila, I know you hate me. You should. I do not expect you to answer. I saw the documentary. I saw what you built. Pause. I thought I would win. I always did. And now, I cannot even get a job as an assistant. They Googled me. Everyone always Googles me. Another pause. A crack in her voice. You did it, Clay. You really finished it. You really ended me. But you also became someone I never deserved. Silence. Then one last sentence. I hope one day you forget me. That would hurt more than anything. Clay sat still, staring at the blinking voicemail light. Then he pressed delete. He did not smile. He did not cry. He just opened his front door, let in the wind, and got back to work. Another family was arriving tomorrow, and they needed keys to a home that Truth built. The snow came early that year. Clay stood outside the third completed home, boots buried in cold mud, breath rising like steam. The mountain ridge behind him glowed faint orange beneath the sunset. Not fire this time, just fading light. Inside, laughter echoed. The new family was settling in. 2 kids chasing each other between newly painted hallways. Their mother, a single army medic, wiped tears off her face as she unpacked a framed photo of her late husband. Shay stepped out beside Clay, gloved hands holding 2 thermoses. Want coffee or the good stuff? Clay smirked. You brought both. I always bring both. They stood in silence, sipping warmth, watching the lights turn on room by room. 3 houses, she said. Feels like 30. Clay nodded slowly. They are just buildings. Until people walk in. He looked at her then. Really looked. You ever think about why you stayed? Shay shrugged, eyes on the snow. Because you were not just fighting for revenge. You were building something real. And I wanted to be part of something that could not be undone by lies. Clay glanced at the sky. This feels like peace, he said. No, Shay corrected softly. This is what peace finally looks like. The nonprofit grew faster than anyone expected. Word spread. Volunteers arrived from across the state. Retired carpenters, electricians, even former Marines and Navy SEALs with no construction experience, but steady hands and loyal hearts. Donations came in from people who read the articles, watched the documentary, or simply knew what it felt like to be overlooked and used. Shay and Clay hired a small team, not a corporation, just a crew. And one day, a man arrived with a cane, a limp, and a quiet smile. I do not need a house, he said. I need purpose. Clay handed him a tape measure. You just found it. On the side of the 5th finished home, Shay installed a custom brass plate by the front door. It read, The Owens Family Home, Second Honor Project, Site Number 5. It was the first home named for the family inside it. No brand, no donor label, no hashtags, just dignity. As the Owens family walked in, Clay stood back and watched their little boy slide across the new wooden floor in socked feet, laughing like he had never been scared. Shay whispered, What do you feel right now? Clay answered without hesitation. Freedom. The old house was still there. The one Clay had once paid for. Slept outside of. Watched his life fall apart through its 2nd-story window. He did not come back for revenge or closure. He came back because the house was up for auction. He parked across the street. Same curb, same view, but nothing felt the same. A new family was touring the home. Young couple, baby carrier, hopeful smiles. Clay did not approach. He just sat in his truck, watching the windows light up one by one. The door he had once been locked out of now swung wide for someone else. Shay sat in the passenger seat. She said nothing at first. Then quietly, "You could buy it." Clay shook his head. "That house is a graveyard. Let someone else build life inside it. I already did that somewhere else." He turned the key, drove away. Not angry, not haunted, just whole. As the house faded behind him, so did the last echo of the man he used to be. The sun broke through the clouds on a Friday morning when Clay received a package he never expected. No return address, just a federal seal. Inside was a citation, formal, stamped, signed by multiple branches of government. Civil Service Commendation for exposure of fraud within federal housing grant structures and for advocacy on behalf of military veterans. It came with a medal, not for combat, but for courage. The letter inside read, "Your service did not end when you came home. Your battle shifted, and you fought it with honor." Clay sat down on the porch steps of the fourth home in progress, staring at the letter. This was not something he had asked for, but for the first time in years, he felt seen. Shay walked up, covered in sawdust. "What's that?" He handed it to her without a word. She read it, smiled, then said something that stuck with him. "You turned your wound into a weapon, then turned the weapon into healing." Not many people can say that. He nodded once, quietly. "Then let us build more." Because this was not the end of the story. It was just a different kind of beginning. A year later, the second honor project was no longer just a concept. It was a movement. 12 homes built. Dozens of lives changed. Clay stood in front of a crowd of new homeowners at a small community event they organized themselves. Barbecues, banners, flags flying not for show, but in gratitude. One child, maybe 10, came up and tugged Clay's sleeve. "Did you used to be in the army?" Clay knelt down. "Yes, I did." "Did someone try to take your stuff?" Clay smiled faintly. "Yes, they did." "What did you do?" "I built something better," Clay said, "and gave it away." The boy nodded, as if it made perfect sense. And that was it. He did not need the world's approval. He had built a new world, one that could not be taken. That night, Shay handed Clay a photo album. Each page showed a family, a room, a rebuilt life. The last page was blank. "What's this one for?" he asked. She looked at him softly. "For the next story." The camera pans out slowly. Clay walks across a field of land ready for more homes. Shay beside him, tools in their hands. Wind pulling at the American flag behind them. Not staged, not perfect, but earned. Narration fades and over the scene, Clay's voice. "They call me broken. They thought silence meant weakness. They never imagined I was planning something bigger than revenge. I was not rebuilding for applause. I was restoring what they tried to erase." Final shot, a stone marker planted in the field. Second honor ground zero. Here began the fall of liars and the rise of the honest. Fade to black. Then one final voiceover. What would you do if someone used your story to build their own lie? Let us know in the comments where you are watching from. What was your favorite moment from Clay's journey? If this story hit you deep, if it made you angry, hopeful, or just quiet for a moment, then do one small thing for us. Like this video. Subscribe for more epic, emotional thrillers just like this. And tell someone you trust. That truth always finds its way. See you in the next revenge story. Until then, stay sharp, stay honest, and take care of your own. The end.